skills to Kennedy. Now Radford and Graham leaping at that far side. And Storey to hammer it! And a goal!
An Arsenal legend, capped 19 times by the England national team. Yet, in just a few short years, he would make headlines as part of the gangster counterfeit money operations and the owner of his very own London brothel. As the police closed in, he planned his escape to Spain with 3 of his female sex workers. This is the tale of Peter Storey, the player with the 8th most Arsenal starts of all time. And by all accounts, a man who never cared for the quiet life of a law-abiding citizen. Born in Surrey to working-class parents, Storey will go to watch all the shots in the 4th division before becoming an Arsenal fan at an early age. A rough young lad on the football pitch, he caught the eye of Charlie Mortimer, a striker for Aldershot, who took him under his wing. He impressed enough at the schoolboys level to be called up for England, as well as to catch the attention of his favorite club, the Gunners. He signed for them upon finishing his education in 1961. Unlike many of the other lads serving the apprenticeship at Arsenal, Storey showed no interest in drinking and partying. A strange fact, considering what happens later. Given a professional contract just a year later, Storey's potential and professionalism were noted from early on, and he spent the next 3 seasons playing for Arsenal's 3rd team, a step below the reserves, due to an overload of senior players on the books. Making his senior debut in 1965 at left back, and became a bright spot in a poor Arsenal side that managed only 14th that season. The next season, though, Storey will start to show the temper that earned him his tough reputation as an Arsenal youngster. After injuring Mike Somerdy of Manchester City, as well as getting involved in a brawl during the FA Cup clash with Gillingham, his new manager, Bertie Mee, began trying to teach Storey to be wiser about being dirty. Gaffer Mee would never explicitly tell him to hurt a player, but would simply offer the less incriminating encouragement of, "You do know what to do, Peter." His vicious desire to win helped take Arsenal from a bottom half side to a top 14 with European aspirations over the next few seasons. Arsenal's assassin may not have been pretty, but he was very effective. By the start of the 70s, Storey was in top form, helping Arsenal to do a double. Despite this, he was labelled as one of the few first division players who can't actually play football by the press. Despite this, he received a call-up for England national team. In the same season, though, he arranged the storming of the manager's office after finding out striker Alan Ball was being paid the princely sum of £250 a week, double what the second highest earner was making. Over the next few years, things took a dip professionally for Peter. By 1975, he was confined mostly to reserve games, which he eventually stopped showing up for. See, behind the scenes, he had begun a descent which would alter how everyone thought of the Arsenal legend. Storey was a secret alcoholic. In fact, his first wife left him due to his problematic drinking. In 1975, though, everything got worse than he could ever have imagined, as was commonplace for sportsmen of that era. He took a 3-year lease out on the pub and became the bar's landlord. This, of course, only made his problem with drinking worse, which parlayed into a string of failed romances. And by the time his Arsenal career was over, he was a desperate man. This is where the Barry brothers, a pair of local gangsters, came in. You see, if Storey gave them some money, they would invest in equipment to make counterfeit money. All Peter had to do was store the dye, and they would take care of the rest themselves. Easy, right? All 3 were caught and arrested, and by all accounts, were dead to rights and were going to jail. Storey, though, ever the battler, decided porridge wasn't for him. So he did what any logical man would do in his position, set up a brothel called the Calypso Massage Parlor. With the funds generated from the new business, he would flee to Spain. The increasingly unfortunate footballer turned criminal was arrested and pleaded guilty to keeping a brothel on the 22nd of December 1979, for which he was given a fine of £700 and a 6-month suspended sentence. Between the date of his arrest for money forgery and his trial, he was in fact arrested for contempt of court, as well as stealing 2 cars he had on hire purchase, for which he received a 12-month suspended sentence. In 1980, the trial concluded, with the result being a 3-year sentence for the 19-time capped Storey. Storey said, "I was never a criminal mastermind, but rather a foolish former footballer with more money than sense." It sounds so big time, so glamorous, doesn't it? All I did was lend money to a couple blokes. I thought we're going to use the money to make a few quid by knocking out cheap imitation jewelry. Following his release, he disappeared from the limelight, working as a market trader whilst on unemployment benefits. Remarkably, he was arrested again in 1990 for trying to smuggle 20 pornographic films into the UK from Europe on a spare tire, for which he served only a month in prison. In 2004, he moved with his daughter to the south of France, and at 78, he is still there to this day. Do you think he has one last heist in him? That is the story of Peter Storey.